Hi, everyone. Welcome. We are so glad to have you here with us today. We are waiting for people to join the webinar. As you come in, please go ahead and type your name into the chat and tell us where you're watching from. I will kick us off. All right. Rhonda, you asked in your email, you are going to be able to ask questions through the chat today. Hi, Erica. I hope you're recovering well from your surgery. Joyce from Greensboro. When you all write in the chat, our hosts and panelists will see your comments. So we can see that we have Greenville and Raleigh and Greensboro right now on here. And if anybody else is on and they want to, hi, Angela from Clinton. Good to see you. Glad you're here with us. Kayla's also from Clinton. Thanks, Erica. I'm sure you're looking awesome too, even though you just had eye surgery. All right. We have about 11 people on here. We have Regina here, and Angela, and Elizabeth, and Jackie, and Jill, and Joyce, and Kayla, and Kim. And hello, Rebecca Ainsley. We were just talking about you, hoping we would see you on here. And Rhonda, so thank you all for coming. Like I said, feel free to drop any comments or questions that you have for any of our speakers into the chat today, and we will try and get those answered. We have a ton of information to share with you, so we are going to try and get to as much as we possibly can and as many questions. If for some reason we don't answer your question today, please feel free to email me and ask your question, and I will share that with our panelists and see what we can do for you. All right, we are going to wait just one more minute. We will be recording today's session, so you will get all of the information. We will send that out. It might take a week or so for us to get that information to you. Both our scams and fraud session 1 and session 2 will be available on our YouTube as well. The first one is already available on YouTube, and the second one will be as soon as we can get it up there. So we will send you all the links using the email that you registered with for this. All right, we have about 13 people so far. We have a lot of folks registered today, but I know there's a lot going on this summer, and so some people will be waiting for that recording. And we're so glad. We know that more people will be joining us as time goes on, but I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. So we do want to go ahead and jump in. So I'm going to kick things off. Welcome, everybody. I'm Lisa Levine. I'm the Senior Director of Programs for Dementia Alliance of North Carolina, and we thank you so much for being here on behalf of Dementia Alliance and AARP for our Scams and Fraud Part 2. We are talking about legal implications today, and we're thrilled to have David Kirkman join our panelists today to give us some more information. So I am going to give you some brief introductions of our superstars, and then we will jump in. So first we have Helen Savage. Helen currently serves as AARP North Carolina's lead volunteer on consumer fraud protection. In this capacity, she works with AARP staff and volunteers on consumer protection advocacy and education. Helen served as an AARP Associate State Director for 14 years, worked with the AARP Public Policy Institute, and she worked on state and federal legislation in California and several other states. She currently lives in Cary, North Carolina, and we're so glad you're here today, Helen. Thank you for joining us again. Next, we have David Kirkman. And Dave is a fraud watch volunteer for AARP of North Carolina. Before that, he was Special Deputy Attorney General with the North Carolina Department of Justice. He served as an enforcement attorney in the department's Consumer Protection Division from 1987 until 2017. And he created and managed its Elder Fraud Unit. In 1998, he was named co-chair of the newly founded North Carolina Senior Consumer Fraud Task Force, and he remains a member 26 years later. Now that's dedication. During his years in the Attorney General's office, David obtained hundreds of court orders and settlement agreements against telemarketers and others who abused or defrauded older consumers. Against one elder fraud group alone, he led an initiative that secured over 400 felony convictions. Wow. During those years, he also secured 11 federally funded grants to develop better ways to fight illegal telemarketing and elder fraud practices. Since his retirement from government service, he has remained active in the fight against senior fraud. 4 years ago, his book Elder Fraud Wars was released by McFarland Publishers. On behalf of AARP and the North Carolina Senior Consumer Task Force, he continues to write and speak about the elder fraud industry and its newest tactics. And he resides in Chatham County. And Dave, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Pleasure to be here.
And last but never least, we have Suzanne LaFollette-Black. Suzanne has been a gerontologist for the past 40 years. Her career has been in the Aging Network as a nonprofit nursing home administrator, area agency on aging director, executive director of Moore County Department of Aging, AARP Georgia State Director, AARP North Carolina Associate State Director of Advocacy and Community Outreach, and Aging Network volunteer. She recently retired and serves as a lead AARP volunteer with the National DIY DWG Driver Safety AARP Coastal Region Disaster Preparedness for Older Adults Task Force, Memory Partners, Powerful Tools for Caregivers class leader, New Hanover County Master Aging Plan Committee, Food Bank, Grandparent Support Network, and a variety of other organizations. She co-founded the Encore Sentimental Journey Singers of the Cape Fear for caregivers and their loved ones, and has been instrumental in bringing the Encore program to Orange County and soon to the Triangle area. While retired, Suzanne serves on a variety of councils, committees, and task force, sings in choral groups, is active in her church, is a Tar Heel legislator, serves on the Moore County Community Advisory Committee, all while finding time to travel and spend time with her grandkids. Woo!
I'm tired.
Pretty amazing stuff, Suzanne. Well, I am going to share my screen and go ahead and start our presentation. And if you want to kick us off, that would be fantastic. Let's make sure we get this shared. All right, and away we go.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. If you'll go ahead and turn to the next slide, that'll be super. Thank you. So last time we got together, when Helen and I had an opportunity to share some great information to you, we talked about fraud trends, how we react to fraud, some prevention strategies, and some resources. And that was back on April 24th. So if you'll go forward, please. So for today, we're talking about legal implications as well as resources about fraud, scams, and dementia. So what you're going to hear today from Dave Kirkman, who is just outstanding. He'll talk about some legal protections, what you need to look for, what you need to have in place, also some support resources when it comes to legal implications. Helen and myself will go over some other resources about fraud to really empower you in what you need to know to help you and your loved one. Lisa, keep going. So at this time, I'm going to turn this over to Dave Kirkman and Lisa, and they're going to talk about fraud and its impact on older adults. Lisa and Dave?
So, Dave, I know we have a lot of questions for you to try and get a lot of the information out, because I can only imagine the wealth of information that is in your mind. But based on your experiences in the elder fraud unit of the Attorney General's office, are criminals systematically targeting people with Alzheimer's and vascular dementia?
They absolutely are, and they have been ever since the so-called elder fraud industry came on the scene back in the early 90s.
It's amazing that there's an entire industry for this. How did you learn about this?
About about the targeting or about the elder fraud industry itself?
About the targeting, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, when we would bring the criminals into court or into the jailhouse after they were arrested, they would tell us in our request who they were looking for, what did they look for in a victim. And so they themselves would just come out with it, that they were looking for people in the early stages of Alzheimer's or advancing cognitive decline. They didn't use that phraseology, but you could tell that's exactly what they were aiming for. Those were the best victims. They were independent. They still had control over their finances. They could get in their car and go to the bank. They were the perfect victims for them.
Hmm. And how do they find their victims or their targets?
Well, I can start with a story from about 25 years ago. It talks about a methodology they used back then and still use today. I was talking to a friend of mine, an older friend, after church one day, and he comes up and says, Dave, I don't know what's happening. I'm getting all these emails and all these phone calls and all these letters from scammers all of a sudden. And I followed your advice on how not to become somebody who's on a sucker list for these scammers to call and try to rip off. But somehow I made it onto the sucker list. What did I do? And I said, well, when did all this start? And he said, it started last month. All these calls and emails started last month. And I responded almost immediately, well, you must have turned 75 last month. And his jaw dropped and his eyes got really wide. He said, how did you surmise from that small amount of information that I had just turned 75 last month? I said, it's very simple. The elder fraud industry knows that as we get older, the percentage chance that we are in the early stages, at least, of Alzheimer's or certain other similar diseases increases. And according to the Alzheimer's Association, it's 1 in 9 at age 65. The chances are 1 in 4 at age 78 and almost 40% at age 85. The scam industry, the elder fraud industry that's out there, they like to contact people over the phone or over the internet who are 75 years or older, because they know they've got at least a 1 in 5, maybe a 1 in 4 chance that the person they're talking to is in the early stages of Alzheimer's. And so after a few minutes of interaction with these targets, they can actually key in on people who probably are suffering from this situation, and they become the repeat victims of these scammers.
That's awful. By the time someone is being diagnosed with some kind of cognitive impairment, don't they have someone who's looking out for them and someone who can spot what's going on?
Yeah, typically they do. There's going to be somebody around, and this next slide sort of gets into the situation. There's usually somebody around, but the caregiver or the family member is not there all the time. So the scammers are going to be able to find out when that person's not around, and they're going to, zero in and start sending their text messages, their phone calls, etc. during those times. But even though they'll rip off somebody who's in the diagnosis phase of Alzheimer's, they really want people who are in the pre-diagnosis phase or the so-called preclinical phase. On this slide, it talks about early Alzheimer's disease. And according to the studies, people who are in the earliest stages of Alzheimer's, they have financial capacity or the ability to protect themselves financially that's already significantly impaired. And again, these are the people who still have their credit cards, their bank accounts, the keys to their cars, and they are the prime targets, although they'll still go after everybody else who's in the mid stage of Alzheimer's or later. So the next slide, you can see that finally the medical research industry is starting to key in on this phenomenon. There have actually been studies released in recent years that show that having been scammed by this particular industry is usually a warning sign, sort of a canary in the coal mine situation that somebody might be in the early stages of this disease. And sure enough, when I was working in the elder fraud unit, we would often have family members come to us and say, remember 4 years ago or 2 years ago when mom and dad were being ripped off so much? And we got them a cognitive assessment, and it came back that they had normal cognitive aging, nothing much was going on. Well, now dad was diagnosed this morning with Alzheimer's disease. So there really did seem to be anecdotally a connection, and now the scientists are making that connection.
Oh, okay. Are there telltale signs that fraud that family members can watch or look out for?
Yes, there are definitely tangible signs that you can see in their home or their apartment as you go in. And a lot of them have to do with the payment methodologies that the scammers, people in the elder fraud industry prefer. And these are payment methods that most legitimate companies and government agencies are never going to want you to use to pay them money. And they are the ones you see on the screen, wire transfers through MoneyGram or Western Union. To the right, you see a woman with a lot of used gift cards that she probably bought at her local grocery store or a CVS pharmacy. Down in the lower left corner, you see something I didn't really know about until a couple of years ago. It's a Bitcoin ATM, and you find these things in convenience stores and tobacco shops all over the place. The elder fraud industry loves to get people to take cash out of the bank and go pump it into a Bitcoin ATM after typing in the account number of the scammer. These so-called peer-to-peer payment methods like Zelle and Venmo, those also are methods that the scammers like. And so for all these methods we just talked about, there's usually going to be a receipt or a pile of receipts. Even these Bitcoin ATMs spit out long receipts just like a regular ATM would do. And so these are the tangible things that you would see in somebody's home if they're being targeted by this industry.
Okay. Are there any other signs?
Yeah, there's less tangible things that mainly have to do with the behavior of your loved one. They may become more secretive. They may become like a teenager and that they're fixated on the next text that's coming in on their cell phone, or they just want to stay on their computer or stay by their phone to hear or receive messages from somebody, and they're very secretive about it, and they don't want you sticking your nose into it. Or you may hear in a roundabout way through their friends that they're talking about having a secret romance with somebody they met online, or a big prize that's coming their way. It should be arriving in a couple of days. Don't tell anybody about it. So these two are some of the ways that you can tell that a loved one has probably been successfully targeted already by this industry.
So if we have access to our loved ones' financial accounts, what should we look for?
You should look for large and usually repeated cash withdrawals. They're usually going to be in the $1,000 to $2,000 range. And this is the money they usually take out when they go down to the grocery store to wire money through MoneyGram or buy the the gift cards. And it's definitely the methodology that's used when they send money to the scammer through the Bitcoin ATM, which is right now one of the most popular ways of obtaining money if you're a member of the elder fraud industry. They'll also use large cash withdrawals to pay couriers who are sent, it's usually somebody from, something like, forget the name of it, one of these courier company, one of these private taxi companies that comes to your house, and they'll show up and they say, I'm here to pick up the money for so-and-so. And you hand them $2,000. So that's another reason why you'll see these large cash withdrawals on their financial accounts.
Wow. So what about money going to people who are relatives or neighbors or employees in the
Yeah,
home?
you'll see the same thing, these large cash withdrawals. You'll also see some unusual credit card transactions where this person, usually it might be a nephew or the kid next door. They've got the victim's credit card, and they're out buying themselves a new cross-country bike or a bunch of video games. It's something that this loved one of yours would never ever buy. So you'll start to see all these telltale signs as you gain access to the information on their accounts.
So if I'm on the account, won't the financial institutions call and tell me that there's these problematic transactions?
No, not unless you have taken or your loved one has taken certain steps to allow them to do that. Otherwise, the institution, and it can also be a stockbroker, would be in violation of finance privacy laws, and they don't want to run afoul of that.
Okay. So what are some of those steps that we can do?
Well, one of the easiest ones is on this slide you see before you. It's to become the trusted contact of your loved one on the brokerage account or the bank account. This is something that your loved one would have to do himself or herself. And banks are actually pressuring people to do this, and so are the stock brokerages. It gives them permission to call you, the caregiver, to report that, hey, your mom's engaging in some unusual financial transactions. Would you like to talk to her about it or bring her in? We can talk together about it. And so this is one way you will learn more about what's going on with the person you're a caregiver for. There's another way, and that's just to simply get permission from your loved one to do their online banking for them. You'll get their password and their contact ID to do online banking, or it could be their investment accounts. And this also will enable you to see some of these same things that are going on, these strange transactions. So those are some preliminary steps you can take, and there are others that are more involved.
Okay. What other steps can we do? I mean, what else can we do to protect ourselves?
Well, these next few steps get more and more involved as you go along. The next layer of steps, I would say, are these advanced directives that your loved one might execute that would give you certain powers and authority to see some of these financial records and transactions and even do business on their behalf.
So we just actually had a question come up in the chat about this, but what are those documents?
Well, in the next slide, you see what these documents typically are. You see there the cover sheets from my last will and testament, my healthcare power of attorney, and my durable power of attorney. And so the one that would get you immediate access to all these accounts would be the power of attorney document. And so that's the next step up from being the trusted contact. You would want to be have the power of attorney for your loved one and be able to open up these accounts, see them, talk to the bankers, talk to the stockbrokers, and all these other things.
Okay, is there a benefit to powers of attorney over other methods?
Well, the benefit of power of attorney is you are sort of like the co-equal of your loved one when it comes to conducting these financial transactions. You can see, not only see all these things involving their accounts, but you can actually take action. You can move money around yourself. You can get refunds, or you can cancel transactions yourself. You can talk to the bankers, find out more information on who this money might be going to. You can actually sue, say, for instance, the kid next door who's ripping off your mom or your dad and transferring money to himself straight out of this account. And so you can actually go on offense once you have the power of attorney.
Okay, I've heard people talk about power of attorney, but also what about guardianship?
Guardianship is yet another step higher as far as I would say the complexity and the seriousness. So you're intervening to take control of the loved one's financial affairs and personal affairs. Unlike the power of attorney, the guardianship, you actually have all this control. You're no longer really sharing it with the ward. You're no longer sharing it with your loved one. The guardianship also is something that's not voluntary the way a power of attorney is. And so it actually it's a court proceeding, and you can actually cause a lot of family strife, and especially strife with your loved one if you initiate a guardianship proceeding. So that's why the power of attorney is often preferable. But if there is no power of attorney, you may find yourself in a situation where you do have to go to court and get a guardianship, either a financial guardianship only or a full guardianship. And these are called conservatorships in other states, but here it's called a guardianship.
Okay, and which one's better, guardianship or power of attorney?
For a lot of the reasons I just mentioned, I prefer power of attorney, the voluntary nature of it, the informal nature of it. It just doesn't cause as much strife once you're able to secure the power of attorney designation from your loved one. So my bias, and I think most people who've been through this probably would say power of attorney. You can do almost everything.
And within power of attorney, are there different levels of that, or is one that you can access financial accounts, and then is there something different that means you can actually handle the transactions?
Well, when you talk to a lawyer about a power of attorney, there'll be all these gradations of the types of powers you would have and access that you would have. And it goes from a limited authority to sell a piece of property or to have access to a bank account, all the way up to everything in the world, basically, even putting somebody signing them up for a nursing facility. So it's going to depend on what type of power of attorney you want or the person wants.
Okay. And powers of attorney and other advanced care directives they seem preferable and simple because they're voluntarily given. I could give mine to you, but what about loved ones who either fear executing those documents, they're afraid that maybe a younger family member will take control of their finances, or if they actually do that, they're admitting that they're incompetent?
This is a conversation that a lot of people have with their loved ones. And in many cases, that's exactly what the loved one is going to say. And the most important thing to say is that they're not surrendering their financial affairs, their control over their financial affairs. They're just allowing you to join, to be able to transact business in their name. It's also important for them to know that these are regular planning documents for anybody who's 65 or older. You're going to need these types of documents like the power of attorney and the healthcare power of attorney at some point, and just saying, hey, mom, what happens if you have a heart attack tomorrow or you're in a car accident tomorrow? Who's going to be able to pay your bills? Who's going to be able to take care of your financial obligations, and hire whoever you need for your care? And if you're ever really having a super tough time convincing your loved one to do this, just try to persuade them to go talk to a lawyer about getting a will done, because usually most lawyers who do wills will also do this entire array of documents, and they can have the conversation and they can speak with sort of an authority in a non-threatening manner that you wouldn't have. You know, this notion that you're trying to take over their affairs, the lawyer's not going to have that detriment.
In capacity as a financial caregiver for you, did there ever come a time when you had to switch from, or does there ever come a time for anybody, where you have to switch from power of attorney to guardianship?
The in the three financial guardianship, or I'm sorry, financial caregiving roles that I've had in the past 2 decades, I have never felt the need to switch over to a guardianship proceeding. I think the only situation where that would come into play is if the person who gave me their power of attorney had revoked it, and suddenly there's no power of attorney at all, and suddenly they are really in cognitive decline. They cannot take care of their affairs at all. That's when I would probably go get a guardianship. But thank goodness I've never had that situation. Nobody has revoked one of those 3 powers of attorney on me.
Okay. There's a couple questions in our chat. One is, when there is a power of attorney and a guardian of estate, which takes priority? And does the guardian of estate have to consult with the power of attorney?
Well, the statutes on this were clarified about 6 years ago, and they sort of recodified the whole section on powers of attorney. Generally, the guardianship, the guardian takes priority. They can still work in tandem on various things, but it's generally the guardian who's got the primary authority and can actually get rid of the power of attorney and act on their own.
Okay. And what are the latest trends in scams run by the elder fraud industry? I know you're very up to date on that.
Yeah, the most of the scams that are being run now on seniors are the same scams that have been run for the last 20 years. These would be sweepstakes scams, romance scams, grandparent scams, lottery scams, money transfer schemes where somebody says there's a big pile of money here in this country I live in and some of it belongs to you. Those are still with us and take up, you know, a lot of room on the elder fraud spectrum. But what's different about them is that they are now being committed using AI, artificial intelligence. And that makes these scams seem much, much more real, especially the grandparent scams, when they can actually send you a video of something that looks just like your grandson in a jail in Mexico, and the voice that you see is that of your grandson. But it's really just a guy in Russia talking to you with a heavy Russian accent, and AI filters all that out to make it look like it's your grandson. So that's one of the big differences. Another is that the world's worst criminal organizations are now totally involved in the elder fraud industry, including some very, very nasty ones from China, based in China. And they are doing this thing called financial grooming, where they come across as somebody just wants to be your friend. And within 6 months, they have you investing all your money in a bogus cryptocurrency account, and you lose your entire life savings. And so that's probably the biggest scam that's out there right now. The average person in North Carolina who lost money to this financial grooming scam last year, according to the Attorney General, lost $172,000. That's the latest and worst scam.
That's incredible. Wow. I know we're sort of out of town, almost out of time for your section, but we have a Michael Jordan slide in here. So I want you to talk to me about that really quickly.
Yeah, there are certain people, and caregivers have said this to me themselves. I like to get on the phone and sort of mess with the scammers. I like to get on the internet and mess with them. And what do you think of that? And I always say it's a really bad idea. And I say, that's like you trying to play one-on-one basketball with Michael Jordan and thinking you might win. You're just never going to win. He's going to beat your brains out. And these scammers we're talking about, they're total professionals. They are going to suck you in one way or the other. And even if they don't, if you talk to them for more than 10 seconds, 20 seconds, you're going to go into the computer system as somebody who will engage with these guys. So they sell your name to other scammers, knowing that you'll talk to them, and they will try to scam you. So I always say it's like going up against Michael Jordan. Don't even try it.
Good advice. Good advice. All right, Suzanne, I think you're going to talk to us next about some prevention strategies.
Sure. Thank you. Dave, thank you so much for sharing that. I was sitting here thinking about my father at 91, trying to outsmart these scammers that used to call him. And also Publishers Clearinghouse was one of the biggest ones. And we had to turn it over to the Attorney General's office in New Mexico. And do you know, when my mother died, I moved Dad with me into North Carolina, and they found him. They found him in North Carolina from New Mexico, those scammers. And he thought he was so smart, my dad. He thought, oh, I can outsmart them anytime. But would he write a check to the Netherlands or Publishers Clearinghouse all the time? Yes, he did. He still did that, even though I said, Dad, don't do that. So yeah, I get it. I understand what you're saying. Go ahead with the next slide. Thanks. So here's some warning signs that you can actually be a victim of fraud. I'd mentioned back on April 24th that my dear husband, who died of dementia, vascular dementia, was caught in the gift card scam and with computers. And so, he was definitely that victim of $4,000 of gift card. So, but you need to also look at other things, such as signatures on checks that don't match the person's actual signature, or maybe a person's will has been changed without permission. I appreciate Rhonda earlier talking about guardianship and power of attorney and when it's most needed. And I have seen cases that guardianship was probably the best thing to do, because these warning signs were happening to this person, and there really wasn't a good family member to handle it, or there might have been a trusted family member. And in the case of Rhonda, that did not happen, where her sister really took advantage of her parents. So, you really got to be sure you've got those documents in order, and just look for these warning signs. So just down the street here, Rebecca Ainsley and I used to live in the same area. She moved out of where I am in Pinehurst, but there was a lot here that 91-year-old woman, and somebody knew about it, and they knew she had some dementia, and they tried to sell her lot without her consent. It was really a mess. So you really got to really watch out for all these types of things. Also, the signed legal papers, the will, power of attorney, joint deed, without knowing what the papers mean. Sometimes somebody will come to that loved one that has signs of dementia and said, sign here. And because they trust that person, they do it. And we just got to make sure that there are safeguards in place, that we know what's going on. And also, things are missing from the home, like jewelry or etc. Sometimes the perpetrators can be a family member, but also can be a professional caregiver. So something that you need to take into account is to be sure to have safeguards, that you have an inventory of things in place, you have pictures, you also have a safe place to put those valuables. Make sure that that is in place, if it's a safe box at the bank or it's safe in your home, but just making sure those things are in a safe place. Go ahead. So other spotting signs of financial scams, unusual bank activity. I saw that with my husband. I was like, where'd that $1,000 go? Well, went to the perpetrator who was taking advantage of him with gift cards. So, look at those types of things. Look in spending habits. Some people like to watch QVC or something, shopping network, and get involved with that. And say, oh, I want that, and start using the credit card, and can get out of hand. So that's something to look at. Behavior shifts. Sometimes we see paranoia, secretive about the money, confused. My dad, he did not die of dementia, but he did have that thing with that scammer. And I remember being in New Mexico, he'd get this phone call and he goes, I have to go in the other room. My mother looked at me, and she was 98, and she said, oh my God, it's that scammer guy. Your dad's trying to outsmart him. And, you just got to really be careful of all of that. Also, disorganization. Lords, if you could see my house right now, I'm trying to declutter, but piles of unopened mail, overdue notices, things like that, that can really, or not even paying your bills. Go ahead. So I mentioned some safeguards earlier, but you also can look at getting joint accounts. Those are financial safeguards. I will tell you that I made sure that my power of attorney for financial and our durable power for health and my last will and testament are all in place, my living will. And I spoke with my children about this, and we all sat down about it because it's very important that you have your own documents in order and that your kids understand it and you discuss it, or there won't be any problems down the road. You also need to monitor accounts like credit cards, your 401k, what have you. Be sure if you have not changed the beneficiary in any of these things, and you need to change the beneficiary, be sure you do it and don't get caught, especially if you went through a divorce or something like this, because they'll come back. I'm just saying. Know some cases of that. Looked at legal protections on advanced care directives, as Dave so well explained, with your financial durable power of attorney. Again, use technology. There's monitoring apps. There's call blockers you can use. Also, build a caregiver support network. And I'm just going to show this on screen. One of the best, you can't see it. Can they see it? So one of the best things is a prepare to care booklet. We will be glad to get this to you. It's in our caregiving resources. But this is forming a team to make sure you're planning in advance as a prevention to make sure that everything is in order for these types of things. If they try to, a perpetrator or a scammer tries to get in, you have your things in order and it'll be a lot better for you. So we can talk about that later. And then if you report suspected fraud, just let that wonderful North Carolina Department of Justice know, or the AARP fraud network. And you can, we'll go over those later with Helen to discuss. So again, educate yourself like you are today. Hooray for you guys. You're on here today to learn more information that you can share with your families and your loved ones and your friends. Also, verify identities, make sure that you know who's who and what's what. Be cautious online. Avoid clicking on suspicious links or texts in your phone. Trust your instincts. If it feels off, then it's not too good to be true. And then seek help. Go ahead. So I'm going to turn this over now to Helen, and she's going to talk about resources to help you all. Helen.
Thank you, Suzanne. Before I talk about some of the really wonderful and rich and deep resources that AARP has, I wanted to just share something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, and it keys into some of the questions that we got in advance about the access that loved ones have to the phone and how difficult it is to try to get someone who is in cognitive decline to not answer the phone. And the reason this has been on my mind is that when we do fraud prevention presentations, one of the things that we stress, one of my rules of being an informed consumer is don't answer your phone. So I keep my contact list in my cell phone very up to date. And if I'm not expecting a call from my doctor's office, if a number comes up that isn't in my contact list, I don't answer the phone. And I realize that the situation that many of you are in as caregivers of someone with dementia or cognitive decline, that this is a really, really difficult situation. And so in some of your pre-session questions, some folks mentioned, well, we've tried to get this across, but the message just doesn't stick. So my advice to you is to contact your service provider and find out what kind of approaches they have. I noticed that I recently became aware of some things that AT&T is doing differently on landline service. And so keep in mind that it is still good advice to urge people not to answer their phone if it's somebody that that isn't on their contact list or they don't recognize the number. But I also am very aware of how difficult that is to get that across. So in terms of what AARP has to offer anyone in terms of educating yourself about how to prevent being a victim from fraud, or learning more about resources that are out there, AARP has something called Fraud Watch Network, and it has three main components. Number one, it is a website with a vast amount of information on all kinds of topics that that reflect scams, how they work, what the signs are of them, and then what to do about it. So at AARP, Lisa, do we have a slide with? No, that's not it.
No,
A slide with AARP.
there we go.
Okay, I was
That
okay. So at aarp.org/fraudwatch network, you can access those resources. And so there are tip sheets. You can sign up for free bi-weekly watchdog alerts. There are like a text about the latest scam that's going on, or some new approach to preventing fraud. I promise you that AARP is not going to send you text du jour. It really is an every 2 weeks information source. In addition to that, there is a toll-free line that anyone can call. You don't have to be an AARP member. You don't have to be age 50 and above. And it's a free service. And that number is on the screen right now, 877-908-3360. On that line, you can report a scam. You can report something that has gone on that you have either heard about or experienced, and it is reflected on a scam tracker map of the country. You can also talk to a knowledgeable and expert fraud specialist. And those, I did that as a volunteer for about 2.5 years. And it was a fascinating volunteer opportunity. And I was interacting with consumers with all kinds of examples of questions or experiences to share. So it could be the kind of call that says, I just got such and such in the mail, or I just got a phone call about blah, blah, blah. Is this a scam? And the people who are on the phone can talk with you about that and give you information about, yes, it's a scam, or no, it isn't. They also, if something is a scam and you have taken steps to respond to the scammer, they can talk you through what to do next, who to report that to, and how to try to unravel or pull apart the situation that you're in. And then the third piece of Fraud Watch Network reflects that if you are scammed, for some people, it is a very traumatic experience. It is psychologically and emotionally traumatizing. AARP has seen the need to offer some support group services for people who are asking for that kind of help. The service is free. It is a small group. There are up to 5 people in a group. It is done virtually. And again, you don't have to be a member of AARP to take advantage of that. So those are the 3 main components of the AARP's Fraud Watch Network. The other thing I want to say is that AARP has made such a major commitment to preventing people from being scammed that now in every single edition of the AARP bulletin, there are articles about fraud prevention. And every year in the March-April edition of the AARP Bulletin, they do an extensive spread of articles about protecting yourself from being defrauded. Oh, and one other thing that is interested to many people. Some people are very, very interested in knowing, how does that scam work? And so AARP's Fraud Watch Network has something called the Perfect Scam podcast. In that case, sometimes they interview people who have been scammed. In some cases, they're interviewing criminals who, as part of their penalty for their illegal activity, is to provide some community service in terms of talking with AARP or other organizations about, this is how I perpetrated the fraud that I committed. So many people find the Perfect Scam podcast to be very interesting and illustrative of, this is how scammers get you. So I just wanted to reinforce that is available as well.
Thank you, Helen. There's so many resources there. Is there a main center or hub for AARP where we can find these?
I would direct people back to aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. That will give you the entire suite of resources that are available. It will include the tip sheets, it will include the podcasts, it will include the helpline, it'll include the fraud support. That would get you to the whole array. The other thing is, if you're, for anybody on this call, or anybody who needs information, our contact information is at the end of this webinar, and is directing you to the AARP office. And I know that Suzanne and I and Dave are very helpful, very willing to help people try to navigate getting to the right information that they're seeking.
Thank you. Thank you
We
so
recognize
much.
that sometimes it feels like you're trying to navigate a minefield, but we're available to try to help you decipher some of this information.
Thank you, Helen. I think we're gonna move back to Suzanne now.
Yeah. So after I finish this, Lisa, if you wouldn't mind going back to slide 19 to make sure that people see that. That's something that Helen was going to go over to make sure there's North Carolina resources for scams. So with caregiver resources, I just wanted to point out to you that AARP has a brand new caregiver toolkit. And for you to share, to be, look at that, you can go to aarp.org caregiving, or call the number. It will help you if you're long distance caregiving. They'll connect you with your resources that you need. The other thing that's great is a link called Quick Link, aarp.org/Quick Link. You can actually sit behind your computer, put in the zip code of your loved one or yourself, and see what resources and programs are available for that person or for yourself. It's really revealing, and it really can help you out. Also, the other thing is the mindmyhealth.org. If you need your advanced care directives, you need those documents for North Carolina, the power of attorney, the living will, and durable power of attorney, all that information's there. There's also an app. You can go into the App Store and put mindmyhealth.org. It's originated out of Duke and also out of good old North Carolina. And I was on that advisory committee. And so this is a fantastic mobile app that you can have with all your advanced care directives and all the legal documents you need when it comes. The other thing is to be sure to look at the North Carolina Secretary of State. They also have a portable opportunity that you can register your end-of-life directives there. And you could call them if you want at 919-814-5400, or you can go to their website at sosnc.gov/forms, and it'll come up. The other thing is Brain Health, another great app on your phone from the App Store of the AARP. This is all free, and this is on Staying Sharp. And there are articles on brain health and music. There's challenges, there's games, There's things on fraud. It is outstanding. Please take advantage of that. And you have it on your phone. Also connect with your digital navigators if you have any questions about technology or issues going on through your area agency on aging. And then, of course, AARPcareconnect.org. So, Lisa, if you don't mind bringing up that slide 19 for Helen, just to review real quick, that would be great.
This one?
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Oh,
Helen?
okay, thanks. Yes, someone in the questions asked where to report. Depends on what the nature of the problem is. The most all-encompassing is to report a scam or a problem to the North Carolina Department of Department of Justice. And that their number is 877-566-7226. That's the number for their Consumer Protection Division. If it is an issue regarding Medicare and fraud, those issues get reported to the Senior Medicare Patrol, which is located in the North Carolina Department of Insurance. And the main number for that agency is 855-408-1212. And then if you want to report Medicare fraud, you select option 1. If you're calling about an insurance problem, it's the same number, but after you get to the main number, you select option 2. The other thing I wanted to remind people is that there are other places that you can report fraud. Again, according to what type it is. Many folks don't know that if the scam that you've encountered was perpetrated through the internet, the place that you report that is to the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and that their online complaint center is the initial C3.gov. That stands for Internet Consumer Complaint, an Internet Crime Complaint Center. IC3.gov is for the FBI, and that is where if you've experienced internet fraud, that's where you would go. I put together a resource list for North Carolina that is available through Dementia Alliance. It has lots of contact information on it for agencies, also information for things like some caregivers have reported to us that their loved one is getting so much junk mail and unsolicited credit card offers and things that they just don't, it's just an annoyance and a hassle and a distraction to get. And so there is a way that you can submit information to a suppression list for unwanted either credit card offers or unsolicited mail. That kind of contact information is on this list. So Dementia Alliance has that, or you can contact me through the information that was on the screen just a second ago, and I will forward it to you.
And we will share all the resources on the registration page for this event where people went and registered. Initially.
Lisa, before we wrap up, I noticed one question that I wanted to try to respond to really
Please
quickly.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, the question was, do you recommend that adult children and grandchildren have, a family code word to use? And this is a reflection of what happens with the grandparent scam, and somebody calls and they're, in a state of agitation and say, grandma, grandpa, it's me and I'm in trouble. And so that is a practice that many families are doing, to have a family code word that you recognize that this is legitimate. The other thing that families do is they don't engage in that, and they just try to contact the person directly on the phone number that they have. And that's another technique for navigating that.
Thank you, Helen. I appreciate that. I did really quickly, I know we were limited with time, but I feel like we did have a couple of questions that came through. One was, if you have hired caregivers in your home, perhaps home health aides or something, it can be difficult for those caregivers to communicate to us if they are concerned about any kind of fraud. And then if you have more than one caregiver coming in, maybe you have shifts of caregivers coming in, do you have any suggestions of how to communicate those concerns to the variety of caregivers? Anyone?
I was just going to say that when you're in the process of hiring someone yourself, you make sure that you have a background check on them, a criminal background check, and make sure they're okay. Also, 3 references and where they worked. You also, when you have different caregivers coming in through an agency, they're supposed to be background checked, for one. Be sure that agency is bonded. Make sure that agency has that criminal background check on those individuals. But if there's any suspicion of that, there should be something in the policy of that agency that you have some kind of format to submit or get to someone to say, this, something's not going on right here. We've noticed this, etc. For you can also, you have the other alternative. If it's something that's very grossly negligent, you have your adult protective services through the Department of Social Services if you suspect. Dave, is there anything you want to add to that, or Helen?
Just some practical advice. We had that situation where we would have multiple caregivers come in during the course of a week. And if we wanted to convey the same message, to be on the lookout for this or be on the lookout for that, we would simply send that same text message to all of the ones that would come in that particular week, because they do, as they're doing their work, consult their text messages and their phone throughout the day.
Great advice. Thank you. All right. One more question that I wanted to touch on, and this may be too big of a question for today, I'm not sure, but let's see if we can give it a shot. What do you do if you suspect that a family member is taking someone's finances, or maybe has gotten a loved one to sign papers inappropriately? What would be at least your first couple of steps in a situation like that? If it's not someone outside, it's in your own family. Where do I start with that?
I would do 2 things. I would contact Adult Protective Services, and I would also contact a private lawyer to get involved and to start dealing with that individual. Number 1, to get it to stop, and number 2, to get the money back or the transaction's undone. Regular law enforcement may or may not get involved in that, at least not right away, but the lawyer probably would do it pretty quickly.
Okay, thank you. Suzanne or Helen, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I don't.
Dave, I'm just kind of curious, can you get a restraining order if something from that individual, if that's suspected?
Yeah, you can.
So
Yeah.
that would be another alternative to consider, is to put a restraining order on the
Yeah, but you
home.
need a
for that.
private attorney. You need a private
Yes,
attorney to
right.
get.
Okay. And Suzanne, you had mentioned criminal background checks.
Yes.
Do any of you know a reliable source for that? Just off the top of your heads. I mean, I know we can search them, we can ask other people, we can ask agencies that we're working with.
There's quite a few. And Dave, I don't know if you have a recommended one that you use through the Attorney General's office. Do you have anything that you would recommend?
Well, we had our own system,
Yeah.
which was non-public, but there are those public ones, publicly available ones. You see them advertised all the time. Check out your babysitter, check out your daughter's boyfriend. For the general public, that's probably the best ways to go. But I don't want to endorse any one of them.
Okay, all right, I appreciate that. Well, we are a little after 1, so I do want to just really thank all of our experts for sharing so much information today. We will post the resources. We will send you the copy of this video, and it will be also available on YouTube. So we do encourage you to go back and watch and take advantage of the contact information that you have and the resources that our experts have provided. Thank you all so much for sharing this information for us and making it a little bit safer out there for folks living with cognitive impairment.
Thank you, Lisa.
You.
Thank you.